Oh, not bad. A little delayed, but that's all right. We are continuing our journey in the book of Acts. And just like some TV shows, we're going to go to the story so far, because it's a continuing story. If you remember, Saul is a Pharisee. Part of all the early Christians pretty much were Jewish. And they were in the synagogues. And Jesus himself was Jewish. And as you know the story of Easter, he was risen from the dead. But a lot of people did not believe that. And Saul was among those who not only did not believe it, but thought of it as a heresy. And he tried to hunt Christians down and put them in prison. Not the Roman prison, but in the sort of a priestly prison, like interrogation. And before that, and what sort of the impetus for all this was when Stephen, one of the deacons of the church, was stoned to death. And Saul was present there to see him killed. In the passage before the one that was read for us, we have the story of the scattering of the church. And they go away from Jerusalem because now they are truly afraid. There is a precedence now for the persecution of the Christian faith, or the Jewish people who believe that Jesus is the Messiah and that he was risen from the dead, and all the miracles that were being performed were done in his name. And so one of the scattering stories is that of Philip, who then is sent by the Holy Spirit not only to Samaria, to the north, but later down to the south, where he meets the Ethiopian eunuch, and then is whisked away again. And we talked about how he is an angel of the Lord. And we also then, in the previous section, read the story of how Saul, on his way to, here we go, from Jerusalem, right here, he's going to travel up the road all the way to Damascus, which is like a 1 to 2 week journey, whether by foot or by horse. One's faster than the other, by far. But he's going to make that journey all the way to hunt Christians in Damascus in the name of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council. And it is on that road, we're told, he encounters Jesus himself. And this really shakes Saul's world. So much so that he arrives in Damascus, and God then speaks to another man named Ananias, who's going to come and speak to him and open his eyes, because he's blinded on the road. And this is where we're going to pick up our story. What happens is, Saul's going to go around, and he's going to preach. He goes to the synagogue where all the Jewish people gather, and he begins, instead of telling them that Christians are heretics. And here's the interesting thing. I'm using the term Christian. They would never use the term Christians. They would say the ones who are the followers of Jesus, or a term that was used as the followers of what they called the way. He says, these people, previously, he would have said, these people are heretics, these people need to be put away. But now he's there saying, no, Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is risen from the dead. I met him on my journey to Damascus to put in prison those who are the followers of the way. So he goes around saying this stuff, and as it was read for us, he just grew in his understanding, and people listened to him, and his power, or his influence, began to grow in the city of Damascus, the place where he was supposed to be. And we know that he was there for about 3 years. He met with the disciples who were in the city, but then he moves in and out a little bit, and over a period of 3 years, he is there in Damascus, to the point which there is a plot by those who don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah or risen from the dead, decide to kill him. This is crazy stuff. Like, who would want to murder someone because they believe something different? Well, actually, if you check history, unfortunately, it's quite common. But in this case, they learn of the plot to kill him. They're watching the gates of the city, and so he has to escape through a basket. They lower it from the wall so he can get out after that period. And what he's going to do is he's going to journey all the way from Damascus back down to Jerusalem. And there he's going to try to connect with the other apostles. We're talking about like John and Peter and James and all those folks. And we're told later on in his telling of the story in Galatians that he only got the chance to meet Peter. But that happens later because none of the Christians in Jerusalem believe that he's actually a follower of Jesus. Remember, he was standing there applauding the death of Stephen. And they would have seen this, or they would have known this, and they would have heard of this, and they would have known him going to Damascus to persecute the Christians there and to drag them back to Jerusalem to face the council. And so they don't trust him. So you can imagine, Saul has gone back to Jerusalem after the 3 years of preaching about Jesus in Damascus, or talking about Jesus and sharing that, and no one wants to meet him. They're still afraid of him. He has a reputation that precedes him in Jerusalem. But there is a person who reaches out to him. And that person is a fellow named Barnabas. Now Barnabas takes him in and introduces him to the rest of the Christian community. He vouches for him. And he tells his story to them. He says, you can trust Saul. He truly has changed. Saul then, for the few days, and he's only there for a few days, about 2 weeks in Jerusalem. And he did get a chance to meet with Peter, probably due to Barnabas' introduction. None of the other apostles, he says, met with him. It was just Peter, who was among the head of the apostles. But there he begins to preach, and he begins to debate with the Hellenistic Jews, people from his own culture, because he himself is from Tarsus. So his reality would have been in a colonial Roman world. He did not grow up in Jerusalem. But he debates with them, and they get upset because he's just so convincing. How can you deny someone who has seen Jesus, heard Jesus? Because that shook his entire world. So he's had time to think about that. And they begin to want to kill him. And so they take him out of Jerusalem knowing that there is this plot, and bring him up to Caesarea, and he will leave for Tarsus, which is in Asia Minor, up in Turkey, way up here somewhere, if you have the whole map. And that's our story. And what happens is after he departs, we're told that the church finally has a time of peace. And it continues to grow, and many people come to faith in Jesus. So that was a story before. This is the story that was read for us as a review. But my question always when it comes to the Bible is this. So what? What's this got to do with you or me in the 21st century? Yes, this is an interesting historical sort of story about what happens to Saul, who will be later, he'll take on the name Paul as a Gentile name because Saul is a Jewish name. But what's it matter to you and me? Well, let's try to get into that. I have a question. How old was Saul, do you think, when he meets Jesus on the road to Damascus? Anybody? Wild guess? What was that? 30s. Okay, good guess. Anyone else? No? Actually, 30s is pretty close because he was likely around 30 years old. Here's an artist's rendition of him. A 30. How many people here are 30-ish? Okay, it's 30-ish. You know, if you're 25 to 35, how many people are in that age range here? There you go. So, Saul is their age range. These four folks. I mean, I gave you a whole decade to work with, but, you know. And here's the thing I want to say. And what is it we're learning from here? Now, remember, all images of historical people are made up. And this is like the hot Saul, okay? This is not this, I'm not sure he looks like this, but someone, has this, Anyways, artists, have their freedom to do their thing. But he would have been about this age. And if you look at the people who are 30, who raise their hands here, I think these folks might be in their 30s. Welcome, welcome. This is how old he is. I'm not 30. Maybe I wish I was, but you're quite young. And here's the interesting part. When we begin to realize how old Saul is, it sort of revises the way that we might think about him. There's this picture I showed you of him getting lowered from the basket. Look at this. He's a bald dude. Look how old is this guy? He must be like 40 or 50 years old. That's not the Saul of this time. It's more like this. Again, another artist's rendition. But he was a fairly young fellow. That actually plays into the story. Because why do people get upset at him, do you think? Let me ask a question. How many people here are under the age of 30? Let's do a cutoff. Under the age of 30. There you go. All the youth are here. I know you're under 30. Yeah, that's right. All right. I see that. There's something very exciting about... And then, Jaden and Kim and Brendan working with the youth. We have a youth ministry. There's something very exciting about being young. And yes, I'm going to include everyone under 30. Or even 30-ish. I'm sorry, I'm out of that range, and a lot of you are like, oh. But here's the thing. Most people, when they're young, have a lot of these traits. They're looking for purpose. They're excited about the whole life ahead of them. They're looking forward, whether it's to more school or relationships or a career or a direction in life. These are things young people look for. The saddest thing that can happen is when you have a young person who has a lot of energy and a lot of passion to give, a lot of fire, but they have nowhere to direct it. And their lives do not become full and directed, but they become empty, become purposeless. There is a reason why in our world today teen suicide is high. In a world of residential schools, in a world of climate catastrophes, in a world of political unrest, in a world where you don't have a financial future, a world where there is no God, no meaning, there is an emptiness. But there are youth, and I'm going to go up to 30 on that one, yeah, let's include some people here, who do find a purpose and a passion. But sometimes it's also a misguided one. As much conviction as is in them, as much passion is in them, if a terrorist organization gets a hold of someone and says, you have been unjustly treated, you need to fight for your rights and the rights of others. If they embrace aspects of violence, not only in action, but even in thought, it goes terribly awry. And that is why political movements pursue the youth. Ideological constructs pursue the youth because they can take it and they will run with it, right or wrong, because they have true conviction. They have passion. That is both the strength and beauty of youth as well as its dark side. There are people, as I've said before last week, with deep conviction, but your convictions do not truth make. So, what is needed? In the understanding of Bob Dylan, the great philosopher, he says, passion is a young man's game. Young people can be passionate. Older people gotta be more wise. Bob Dylan at 19. Bob Dylan this year. He's come a long way. And we know he started in the 60s. In his musical career, just took off. But through his journey, we know that he also became a follower of Jesus. It took time. And so in this case, you have a firecracker whose world has been transformed. The entire paradigm of Saul, remember, on the road to Damascus, is shaken. And he goes, wow, this is a new reality. Jesus is the living Messiah, raised from the dead. And you can imagine the fire that is in his heart. And when he's preaching, he's going to bring it. And that may be what sets people off a little bit. Because he has this deep conviction. It is a true conviction of the risen Christ. But he preaches with such power and such passion that those who disagree with him take offense. When he gets to Jerusalem, same thing, right? He's only got like 2 weeks and he does it again. People are trying to kill him. And so the curious question that I had was this. Why is it wherever he goes, people want to kill him? And why is it when he departs, there's a sense of peace? Now, this is 100% conjecture, and I always tell you that if I'm making a sort of guess. Why is the church at peace when he leaves? Is it because of his methodology? I have a question for you all. No matter what age you're at, if you are older, above 30, older, or if you're younger, I want you to share something with someone else today, and that is share one thing that you were passionate about when you were young. You can take young to mean anything you want. Okay, I'm going to make that open-ended. But tell me something that you were passionate about. When I was young, when I was 19 years old, something happened in China, and that was Tiananmen Square, where it was the massacre of students in Beijing. And as I watched that horror happen in history, and as I read about it, and I was involved with other people, I wanted to do something. I was a young person. And so I joined a community of people who wanted to remember what happened. And so in the 1-year anniversary of it, on my campus, which was the University of Waterloo, we held a march with hundreds of people around the campus, gathered together to remember this tragedy and atrocity. I got involved in because I was an English major, I directed a play that replayed the show trial of one of the people who had protested. I was involved. I carried signs. I sang the songs and I shouted the slogans because it was something I truly and deeply believed in. And today I'm wearing orange. And some of us here are doing the same thing. And someone said, I forgot to wear orange. That's okay, because the orange is on the outside. But what's in your heart? I've had conversations with people who say things about our indigenous brothers and sisters, these stereotypes. And in those moments, I get a little warm on the inside and go, that's not true. Do you understand why and what has been done to them through the residential schools, the shattering of their culture, the destruction of their families? These are injustices. But I want to ask you, and it doesn't have to be a political issue. It could be video games. It could be a TV show. I don't know. What are you passionate about? But here's the question I want to ask you. What is worth being passionate about? But whatever it is, there's no judgment here. What was something you were passionate about when you were young? One of the things I liked was anime. But there are other things that took my attention too. So let's take a moment right now. Think of something you were passionate about. And if it's political, fine. If it's just something in culture, fine. But share something that you were passionate about, and maybe even in the present. Share something from your heart that makes you, focus. So, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. It shouldn't be too long. So turn to one person at least that you're with. No more than 3, because it'll take too long. And I'll give you about 5 minutes, maybe 7, to sort of have that chat. What is something that you are passionate about or were passionate about, especially in your youth? Go to it. I'm going to try to reel you all back in to our conversation, from our conversations. I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about one another and about your passions. And I'm wondering if you can just call out, what are some of the passions that you had or have? Just, what's that? Lego. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I get it. I have a stack of Lego. Anything else? Lego. Radio DJ? Oh, okay. A particular one, or? You were a DJ, so you were DJing. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's something to do. Anyone else? I'm sure someone's got something else. What are you passionate about? Where did you put your energy and time? There's no judgment. You're into what you're into as a young person, right? Or as an older person. No. Icelandic rock. Like, what's, Bjork or something like this? No, Bjork. Yeah, she's one of the Icelandic folks. Yeah, Icelandic rock. It could be a very specific. Anything else? Did someone say shoes? Okay, shoes. All right. Somebody likes shoes. Anything else? You must have something. Just shout it out. Don't be afraid. What was that? Magic? Magic. Okay. Nice. Close-up magic. Anything else? Video games. Yeah, let's go there. I'm a big fan. Still am in a way. Anything else? little slow to that. Watching hockey, of course. Absolutely. Especially during playoffs, if we're in it, if your team's in it. I know we had some fans wearing jerseys this past year. Anything else? There's a myriad of things. Anyone into coin collecting? Stamps? Music? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah, I see some people nodding. Okay, there's someone there. It can be specific genres, right? Not just Icelandic rock. There can be rap. There can be hip-hop. There can be jazz. You know, just go through the whole list. There's a whole bunch of possibilities. But you must have been passionate about something, because the sadness of it is if you have no passions. But there is something, and we're in church, that's worth being passionate about. Because what is the message of the gospel? The kingdom of heaven has come. The transformation of our world from the inside out. Real peace. Real reconciliation. How many of us as believers in Jesus are passionate about Him? How many of us have learned what it is to love Him? So in this artist's rendition, it is Barnabas sitting with Saul. He's accepted him, brought him in his home, and it is Barnabas who you'll discover is wise. But here's the caveat that comes along with age and wisdom. Wisdom can come with age, but age can come by itself alone. There's enough people in our world who just grow old. They do not grow wise. And I want to also say this. I have met wise young people. Jesus is described from the age of 12 to 30 as growing in wisdom and stature. Those of you who are teenagers right now, you will be leaders of the church, not tomorrow, but today. You might not believe that. You might think, I'm too young. I don't know enough. But you have something that some of us old folks don't have and need from you. Is that passion. And you can develop wisdom if you seek it out. And what is wisdom? It's not intelligence, knowing how to solve problems. It's not knowledge in terms of just having more data. It's knowing how to live well. There are old folks who still live empty lives. But the hope is this, that with wisdom and the time that you acquire it, whether you're young or old, and it's never too late, you can teach an old dog new tricks. These are the aspects in which we can grow as human beings throughout our lives to shape wisdom. And Proverbs has this really well-known statement. And that is, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Let me break this down really quick for you, because you might be asking, as a young person, or as an older person, how do I become wise? The Proverbs says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that word fear is not like, oh, I'm afraid, I don't want to encounter God. That's not what that fear means. It means a reverence. It means a respect. But I will say one more thing, because the Bible does support it, even though it doesn't say it word for word. although the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the maturing of wisdom comes in the love of the Lord. You get it? You fear someone you don't know that well. You reverence someone who's so far off, someone you hear about. But you come to love someone you actually encounter, someone you know. And so therefore, the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. The first one refers to an aspect of prayer. Like, do you talk to God? Do you actually engage and relate with God? Whether the Son, the Father, or the Spirit. And do you know anything about God? Or do you labor under what the church has told you? What Pastor Ted has preached to you? Or do you read it for yourself in the Scriptures? Who Jesus is, what He does, what His attitudes are, what He teaches. And you begin to discover that the fire and the passion that Jesus has is not a misplaced one, but one that is filled with compassion and not dominance. You begin to discover the heart of God by understanding who He is. So read the Word. It tells us what is in His heart. And in so doing, you truly grow in wisdom. Here's another interesting saying. Passion without wisdom destroys. Experience without passion is barren, and I dare say becomes quite cynical. To live wisely, we must integrate our thoughts, feelings, and actions with the heart of God. I wear this shirt because I know what is in God's heart. I march in those marches because I know what is in God's heart. I know what breaks His heart, and I know what gives Him joy, because those things I have learned break my heart, and they're things that give me joy. When there's peace, when there's honesty, when there's care and compassion. Back to the artist's rendition. Saul at 30, 40, 50, and 60. I'm not going to tell you which category I'm in right now. You can probably figure it out. And I don't look. This is like the hot Saul. Remember I told you this the same dude did all these things. Like, oh wow, dude, if I look this good, But just imagine, where are you going to be in the next few decades? Will you have grown in your wisdom? Will your relationships have become richer? Would you have followed the way of Jesus? Saul is not going to make it past his 60s. The Scriptures tell us this. This is as far as he's going to get. And he probably not looking like this, but hey, he's a hero to some in that way. But think about your own self. What are your passions? What are you living for today? And what are you willing to give your life for? And are those things worth your life? Because if they're not, the Holy Spirit is inviting you to see something, to do something, to live in a manner that might be different. May you live with both wisdom and passion. no matter what age you are. Amen.